Hello everyone. Today is one of those days again. I'll just get straight to the highlights. Again, if you want to know more about this, it's there in one of the previous videos. I'll probably make another general video which I can link to again and again. About like what's this about. But for now, let's just jump in and yes, let's start. The first one is from the Molecule of More. This is another book which I started reading about a week back. This is again about brain, but more specifically about the role of dopamine in brain. How does it affect our uh, like what is it? What's its role in everything that we do? Dopamine, they discovered, isn't about pleasure at all. Dopamine delivers a feeling much more influential. Understanding dopamine turns out to be the key to explaining and even predicting behavior across a spectacular range of human endeavors, creating art, literature, and music, seeking success, discovering new worlds and new laws of nature, thinking about God, and falling in love. So, yeah, this is like the underlying principle of the book. This is very near the beginning of the book, and where they're describing that what's dopamine and how, like, the history of our research into dopamine. And initially, it was thought to be a chemical that's responsible for pleasure. Because it was initially studied in minds of drug addicts, and that's why it was kind of linked to pleasure. But then, with more and more research, of course, they found out that dopamine is they have a very fancy name for it. Reward prediction error. In other words, whenever you're surprised, pleasantly surprised, there's a dopamine shot in your brain, and that makes you feel elated. So this highlight, that's what it explains, that it turns out to be key in explaining and even predicting many aspects of human endeavors: art, literature, love, laws of nature, thinking about God, everything. And I mean, in the second chapter in the book, the first chapter was about love, and it was amazing to see, amazing to read about all the different aspects of how dopamine impacts. How or how the thrill of seeking dopamine impacts our behaviors. And now the current chapter that I'm reading, it's about drugs, it's about addiction. That's also amazing, like the impact of addictive drugs on the system and how it impacts the dopamine flow, and uh, you know why do people become addicted in first place. you know so yeah, let's move on. Getting things done. Things rarely get stuck because of lack of time. They get stuck because what doing would look like and where it happens hasn't been decided. Right. So again, it's linked with a lot of other discussions that we've had about procrastination and everything. Why don't we get started with something? Because we have not been able to clearly visualize what doing looks like. Like the highlight says, what would it look like to actually begin something? We might think that, okay, I have this project, I want to get started with this, but it's a very abstract notion. And until that's an abstract notion, and until that becomes kind of like a perfect thing in our entire roadmap, it's not going to come to fruition, and we get stuck. So what it's very important for us to move from that phase of like an idealized vision of something to just acting on it. And again, like I've said before, sometimes you have to act before you understand it completely, and that's something that's very new to me. I mean, I would traditionally, I would wait to understand something fully, and fully, but when I say fully, I mean fully, like 95 to 100%, and then start on something. And of course, I started very little. So yeah, yeah, that's what this highlight is about. We get stuck because we can't imagine what doing would look like, and that is where we have to get to. And like thereby, there are other highlights in this book which we discussed, where the author talks about getting to the, like when you're writing, when you're putting in a task or project in your to-do list. Don't write that, okay, this is the project you need to do. Write down the first action item that needs to be doing for that project. So that's what's important in the system, not writing the projects. That's just under to-do list that never gets done. So let's move on. This is from Infinite Game. They know that good leaders sometimes suffer mission failure and bad leaders sometimes enjoy mission success. The ability to succeed is not what makes someone a leader. Exhibiting the qualities of leadership is what makes someone an effective leader. Qualities like honesty, integrity, courage, resiliency, perseverance, judgment, and decisiveness, as the Marines have learned after years of trial and error, are more likely to engender the kind of trust and cooperation that, over the course of time, increase the likelihood that a team will succeed more often than it feels. Um, I think the highlight is straightforward, but the reflection kind of reminds me of this whole. I mean, at the time of this recording, there is this thing going on about Twitter and Elon Musk taking over Twitter and everything, and like the qualities of leader, and you know I'm not really that bothered with the direction Twitter takes. It's yeah, I mean, of course, I want them to succeed, but it's okay. It's another platform. Platforms come and go. We may have something else, or this might work out. Who knows? It's not like this is definitely going to fail. We don't know that. But what we do know is that like the kind of the leadership qualities being exhibited, at least in public. I mean, again, we can't see everything that's going on at the Twitter headquarters, but at least the things that's coming out, um it does not really reflect qualities like integrity or courage or resiliency or perseverance, in my opinion. And s- like, even if these are not being exhibited, there might be success, there might be failure. There is no correlation between qualities of leadership and mission success or failure. Mission is quite something different, and that's the point of the book. We're playing the infinite game, and like they say, you may lose a battle, but you're in it for the war. Okay, well, military analogies aside, um, sometimes you're in it for the long game, and short-term failures happen. That doesn't mean that your leadership qualities are essentially bad. Yeah, there could be certain behaviors that need to be improved, that need to be optimized. But yeah, this is it's kind of it's much more complex than that, and it's it takes years of practice. It takes years of, okay, like the highlight says, years of trial and error, after which Marines have discovered that, okay, the kind of trust and cooperation that's needed within a team, it comes with good leadership, and that is what sets you up for success in long term. Short term, yeah, I mean, you might have read in leadership books, that sometimes a dictatorial style boss is what is exactly required for a short term success, and sometimes that short term success is linked with survival, and then it's okay. I mean, it's a measured risk that you're going to behave in a dictatorial fashion for a short term, and that is going to lead to short term success and hence survival. But yeah, that doesn't really hold up in the long term. In the long term, these are the qualities that are important. These are the qualities that you need to exhibit to build that trust and the cooperation within your team. And again, from what we see, we don't really know what, I mean, at least I don't really know what's going on inside the headquarters. From what I see, that's exactly what's missing, the trust and cooperation. Well, let's move on from get it done. When you think about your actions, you similarly expect to remember what you did first and last on the path to your goal more than everything that happened in the middle. Knowing that we'll forget what we've done in the middle, we subconsciously realize that cheating won't undermine our self esteem and it's easier to hide from ourselves. So, this is really interesting, And if I think about it, it is true. We rarely remember the middle of the journey, I think the book also gives this example of driving to somewhere. You might remember how you started your journey and how you ended, but you'll probably forget the most of the middle. And actually, like, another section of the book is talking about how middles can drain you, which is why it's important to keep the middles short, as in keep the tasks as short as possible, so that you have a start, very small middle, and then an end. Well, okay, coming back to this highlight, this talks about you know how do we end up cheating, or well, cheating in various senses. It's like, I mean, why do we end up cutting corners or not doing the best job we can, reasonably can, not even ideally can, even reasonably can, we don't even do that, because if a long, if the middle part of a task is long, we know that, like, we can't cheat ourselves, like we have read in the other books. So knowing that we'll forget the middle part of it anyway, we'll kind of think that it's okay, let's cut corners. It's not that, I mean, it's not even that other people will be, other people would undermine you, or other people would think differently of you. You yourself won't realize, you yourself won't remember that this happened. And then it's okay for yourself that, okay, even if you're cheating, even if you're cutting corners in the middle, you're not going to remember it anyway. So it's okay, you're not going to undermine your self-esteem, or it's easier to hide from ourselves, like the highlight says. It's a really, really interesting discussion. And why even, like what we say, unconsciously, subconsciously, why we do this, why we uh, cut corners, or why we cheat with cheat the quality of the task, or whatever the task entails. Anyway, let's move on. Getting things done. Thinking in a concentrated manner to define desired outcomes and requisite next actions is something few people feel they have to do until they have to. But in truth, it is the most effective means available for making wishes a reality. So again, I think we have just covered this in the previous highlight, just like I think the second highlight of today. It's thinking of a project in terms of the outcomes, in terms of actions, is what makes it happen. And it's difficult, and very few people do that, and but it is the most effective means to do it. We have discussed this in the previous highlights. I'm just going to skip it. The science of overcoming procrastination. The avoidance fear of success is rooted in a sense of having to feel guilt and responsibility once they do discover the fullest extent of their capacities. If they work on a task and accomplish it with flying colors, they are likely to feel guilt for all the other times they perform below their potential. In addition, they are also likely to feel a staggering responsibility to continue performing at the fullest capacities for the rest of the tasks they'll encounter in the future. So this goes to show it's how how complicated our brains are. And even if there is something that we can reasonably do to our idea of perfection, and like our ideas of perfection can be really lofty. And even if we know that we can do it to our idea of perfection, we still avoid doing it. We still set up these mental blocks, and these are the mental blocks described over here. Essentially, that if you do it once, we feel bad that, oh, why didn't we do it the other times? Or if we do it well today, we'll feel obliged that we'll have to keep doing this well in the future. And that again, it sets up a mental block, which leads to procrastination. It's classic overthinking. Well, let's move on. Cues. The more powerful you feel, the more space you take up. The more powerful you look. Okay, let me read this again. The more powerful you feel, the more space you take up. The more powerful you look. When we feel confident, we feel safe taking up space and are more comfortable with others noticing us. So it go again, like the book is about various cues you send out, right? So if you feel powerful inside, you would look powerful. And like it draws why that happens. It's basically, you take up more space. You're not that afraid of what's going to happen. If somebody's going to attack you, because you feel powerful. Nobody can attack you. So when we feel confident, we take more space, and people see that, that okay, we have taken up space. I'm stretching out. I'm kind of stretching my arms and everything. But in, like, when we are nervous, when we're afraid something will happen, we kind of shrink into ourselves. So and people see that as well. It's again, like, this happens at such an underlying level that nobody realizes that all this happens. That's why cues are important in this social interactions. Well, let's move on. Extreme ownership. If an individual on the team is not performing at the level required for the team to succeed, the leader must train and mentor that underperformer. But if the underperformer continually fails to meet standards, then the leader who exercises extreme ownership must be loyal to the team and the mission above any individual. If underperformers cannot improve, the leader must make the tough call to terminate them and hire others who can get the job done. It is all on the leader. Well, leaving aside the strong language in this, of course, this is like written from a military background. Um, yeah, it's about the ownership the manager has on a team. And I think Radical Candor is another good book that goes deep into this, about why you have to be candid with your with your team, giving in terms of giving feedback, in terms of making decisions. And just because there's an underperformer, and like, you are trying to be kind, in my organization, we say that you're not being kind if you do this. You're being nice, and that's not what we want. We want to be kind, not nice. So I mean, and nice if possible, but yeah, like that's not the important bit. What is important is kindness, not not nicety, or at least because this doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help the person improve if you're being some nice to somebody and not setting them up for success. Um, you're not raising the expectations bar for them, and because of them the team is failing, and because the team feels they fail, they may do very well in some other area, in the area where they are suited to work. So it's better they go there, rather than spending time over here. So yeah, first, if you find a person like this on your team, help them grow, give them feedback, candid feedback. Like, again, Radical Candid talks about a lot about this. It's and there's another book that I've read called Thanks for Your Feedback, and again, it goes a lot into this. What's the how is feedback perceived, and how you better design your feedback and everything. But that's a whole different thing. Help them, train them, mentor them, give them feedback, and help them grow. But if it still doesn't work out, you have to prioritize your team, and that is what ownership is about, because you're owning not just this one person's involvement in your team. You're owning the efforts of your whole team. So let's move on. Poke the box. Pick me acknowledges the power of the system and passes responsibility to someone else to initiate. Even better, pick me moves the blame from you to them. If you don't get picked, it's their fault, not yours. If you do get picked, well, they said you were good, right? Not your fault anymore. Reject the tyranny of picked. Pick yourself. So this is talking about like that notion of pick me to do this, or pick me to give me this or whatever, and it passes the responsibility to someone else to initiate. So you're not the one initiating, and this book is all about initiating. It's about beginning, it's about starting. But if you have this notion that, okay, pick me, I'll do this, I mean, I'll wait for you to pick me and then I'll do this, it passes the responsibility to somebody else. And if you don't get picked, it's their fault, not yours. It's you couldn't have started because you didn't get picked. And if you do get picked, I mean, okay, whatever happens to the task, it's fine. They said I could do it, right? I mean, and if it doesn't, it's their fault again. So it's our mental model that, if we have this notion of like waiting for others to pick us, the mental model that this sets up for us, it's kind of a lose-lose relationship. It's sorry, lose-lose solution. And because in both cases we lose. If we don't get picked, it's their fault. There's no chance of growth. If you do get picked, you know you again, like, the stakes are more in their decision to pick you, not your decision to initiate and do something. So yeah, well, let's move on. Get it done. To sustain motivation, we want the lesson from negative feedback to be about our lack of progress, not our lack of this is commitment. Asking ourselves certain questions in response to failure, negative feedback could help. For example, asking, do I feel I haven't made progress, will prompt us to frame the negative experience in a way that might motivate us to make progress. So this is another feature in Readwise. It's like flashcards, so you can hide certain keywords, and so I think it's commitment, if I remember. Yeah, it is commitment. Okay, so yeah, this is talking about like when we do receive negative feedback, what is it about? It's if the feedback indicates that we are not committed to something, we lose motivation in the whole task, because like now our internal story is that I'm not committed to this. Why am I spending so much time on this anyway? No, but if it's lack of progress, there is another set of motivation parameters that come in. It's like, um, oh yeah, I only have so much distance to go, or oh, I have already started my journey, I should finish it. That, so like, different again, depending on if you enjoy the task or if you don't enjoy the task. This differs, like what is better for you, having just started the task or being close to the goal. What is better? This sets up a different motivation in different people. And again, the book goes too deep into, I mean, very deep into this. It's a very well, I mean, shall I say, academic read. It was very insightful. It was very difficult to read also. I mean, it's uh, for someone like me, not from an like a deep academic background, it was a little difficult to read, but it was very, very insightful. It was worth putting in the effort to read it. And yeah, okay, so the example the highlight says is that, okay, a good way to frame this so as to not make it about a commitment but about progress is that, do I feel I haven't made progress? That's a question you can ask yourself. And that forces you to think about progress rather than, okay, do I really want to do this task or not? Because that's a dangerous zone. If that's what you start thinking about, it affects your motivation. So, well, that's the 10th highlight today. Let's see, the president's keepers. Only have to zoom ahead. Okay, I'm not really sure what this is, so I'm just going to skip it. I think we've already spent enough time today. So that's it for the day. And once again, thank you for watching. It's been over 2 weeks since I'm doing this. I think this is like the third week, and it's been fun. It's been illuminating, and yeah, I am looking forward to keep doing this. Thank you, everyone.